so the bass knocking.
Hey guys, it's Greg with DadPad Gaming with a review of Returnal. Returnal is a roguelike, semi-platformer, third-party shooter, horror, but really kind of a thriller game. And it's made by Housemarque Games, the same team that brought you Nex Machina, and one of my personal favorite, the PS4 launch title, Resogun. This copy of Returnal was provided by, well, me. So, with that being in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Let's get this out of the way now. Returnal is an extraordinary game. In fact, it's probably my favorite game of 2021 thus far. But even in giving this game such praise, there's some huge flaws within the game that will run off lots of gamers, and in some ways I was one of them. At points it really had me asking, who is this game for? But we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's start with narrative and make our way into mechanics later, as this will help us to understand the major issue within this title. In a nutshell, you play as Celine, a badass space expeditionist who finds herself crash-landed on a mysterious planet. She takes a few minutes to gain her bearings and reach out to her command center, but she can't get a text back. That joke? Yeah, I know. Anyways, she takes it upon herself to explore her surroundings, and soon she discovers the remains of an astronaut. The big reveal is that the astronaut that Celine finds is actually Celine herself. From this point, it doesn't take long for Celine to understand that she's been in a constant death loop of crash landing on this planet and suffering every death imaginable. So long as said death includes awesome light shows, tentacles, and a few encounters of the fourth kind. But at this point, it's up to Celine to figure out exactly what's going on here. One of the coolest things about this game is that it gets to a point where it seems like Celine is just losing her mind and almost being consumed by the death loop. And when it gets here, she's still rightfully weirded out by some of the things that happen, but in my opinion, she becomes more inured to the rules of this mysterious planet, and things that were once terrifying become the norm. And in some cases, some things that you assume were only there to hinder your progress as the player can be used to your advantage. And honestly, I love that narrative and gameplay are in sync to allow you and Celine to make these discoveries together. They even go out of their way to provide plenty of cryptic item descriptions to keep you guessing right up until that moment where you're all like, oh, so that's what that thing is for. The best part is that these moments happen naturally with just having that gameplay experience, and while it could tell you those things here and now, it's a lot better when you and Celine learn these things together. Now, in terms of genre, it's hard to cover all of your bases, but at heart, this game is a roguelike, Metroidvania, over-the-shoulder bullet hell, and there's even some elements of like a PT-esque first-person game here that are bound to make you nervous. I get that that's a mouthful, but it's the truth, and I'm sticking with it. Let's go ahead and move into gameplay and mechanics, which I feel is where Returnal really shines the most. Celine is equipped with plenty of formidable items, weapons, and abilities that give you the opportunity needed to actually, well, beat the game. We're going to take a brief moment to go over some of these items in inventory here that'll just kind of help you to understand one of the major systems of the game. So of course you have your basic things, X to jump, circle to dash, square is a lightsaber, there's a grappling hook, but there's a bit more here. There's a surprising amount of different weapons available. You have your usual suspects, your machine guns, assault rifles, pistols, but there are more, and some of them are very surprising. All of these skills are used to build up your arsenal, because eventually, Celine will be putting on the best light show on the block and killing a lot of aliens while doing so. Now, mechanically, the entire premise of this game is risk and reward. They ride that philosophy until the wheels fall off, and you'll understand more as we dig into the items and the few categories that are available here. This is how I sorted them out. So we'll start out with currency. This breaks into two different categories. First is Obolite, which you lose at the end of each cycle, and then there's Ether, which will carry on with each cycle. The trick here is you can only carry a max of 30, so don't worry about hoarding it, just spend it as you get it. Next we have health items. There are items that will heal you. There are also items that can actually increase the max health. There are buffs, You have augments, those are like stat upgrades. You also have artifacts. These are stat boosted mods. These things can offer anything from like self-healing abilities to speed boosts, respawns, and more. Parasites also offer you stat boosts accompanied by debuffs. For example, you might find a parasite that will give you max integrity, which is what they refer to as health in this game. But on the flip side, it may increase the dash cooldown to up to 4 seconds, which is really a hard one to deal with in a bullet hell where you'll spend lots of your time dashing out of the way of projectiles. There's also plenty of consumable items here that can do anything from heal you to provide you with shields and so much more. So I would encourage you, if you do play this game, to pick up as many things as you can and find out what works for your playstyle. So this is where things get interesting. Most items can be found throughout the world or at in-game stores referred to as fabricators. The kick is, fabricators are fairly low risk, you've just got to be willing to part with your obolite. However, when these items are found in the overworld, chances are these items could be infected by a malignant aura. The malignancy system is where the risk and reward system is rooted. So let me explain. For example, there's a treasure chest. You desperately need a new weapon, but that chest is infected by malignancy. So you have a few options here. A, open the chest and risk a malfunction, which can do anything from lower your max health, destroy one of those precious artifacts, or maybe even cause obolite to disappear faster when it's dropped from fallen foes. B, pay up to 6 ether to cleanse the treasure chest so that you can open it risk-free. Or C, pass on it because you cannot afford a critical malfunction that can completely ruin you and your chances of beating the cycle. The scariest thing is, you can open the chest and find extra obolite, or maybe a random item that's just not useful for your current build, and now you're stuck with a detrimental malfunction and an item that is meaningless to that build. Sounds like that cycle may be coming to an end. The worst part is, maybe you actually use some of that precious ether, and now you have less resources available to do things like, well, activate checkpoints, which are infinitely useful in this game. One of the more important items that I can't leave off the list here are weapon calibrators. It's an item that's used to help you to boost a stat called weapon efficiency. This is a stat that helps to dictate the minimum level of weapon you can find in the world. This is important for a multitude of reasons, one being that each gun actually has 2 separate firing modes. One is your basic firing mode, which can be activated by pulling the left trigger on the DualSense halfway down. Beyond that, if you pull down all the way, which there is a really defined click there to help you understand, you can alternate into your alt firing mode. The alt firing mode can do anything from drop landmines to shoot out void lasers and so much more. It's a really interesting way to use that DualSense controller. Speaking of which, the vibrations in which you feel in this game are amazing. I'm not going to go into too much detail there because I really want you to find and experience those moments for yourself. Now, back to weapons. Each weapon actually has the possibility to carry a modification with it. These can only be unlocked by actually using the weapon. In short, there's a pool of random mods that can be attached to the same class of each weapon. Some of these mods offer explosive rounds, faster fire rates, or my favorite, the portal laser. The right combination of augments, artifacts, and weapon mods can be the difference between you starting a new cycle and you steamrolling bosses waiting for you at the end of each biome. All of these systems work in harmony to make up a game that's pretty fair, and because of that, 98% of the time it feels like it's on you or your ability to play, or maybe even your decision-making skills are to blame whenever you fail at an attempt to break the cycle. Now that mechanics are out of the way, it's time that we address the elephant in the room. There's only one issue with this game, in my opinion, but it's a big one. In fact, it's so big that this issue is intrinsically tied to the artistic view of the creators and the gameplay. So here it is. The overarching issue is that Returnal seems to not respect your time, and in multiple ways at that. The biggest way that this is displayed is both with PS5's lack of a quick resume feature like its Xbox counterpart, and in Housemarque's decision to not include a traditional save feature into the game. Now, I do want to clarify that this game does save your progress, but only at the beginning of each cycle, and the only thing that carries over from cycle to cycle are biome keys, equipment that you find to help traverse these biomes, and your ether. So, if you have a godlike build, but then the kids are hungry, it's rest mode for you. That would be semi-okay if there wasn't a sporadic PS5 rest mode issue that causes you to need to hard reboot your actual PlayStation. There's also the fear of a power surge, the accidental unplug, which can happen to just about any parent gamer, or even wanting to play another game. And the biggest offender is game patches or updates. Pretty much anything that causes you to purposely or accidentally close the app that is Returnal will result in you having to restart your cycle from square one, and that's no bueno. Because of this, anytime that you want to play Returnal and make meaningful progress, you almost have to ensure that you have anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to sit down, which can be a big ask. Seriously, my final run of this game took about 3.5 hours. The way that it's set up is, you could actually start from ground zero and go straight to the final biome once it's unlocked, but you'll probably get your teeth kicked in. So the game more or less encourages you to replay previously cleared biomes where boss battles are optional, all for the purpose of gearing up for the final battle. One of the biggest issues I actually had in the final biome is the fact that there are enemies that can cause malfunctions simply by hitting you. And what makes this so odd is because for a game that is designed so well, there are no precursors to this happening. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the game but in the final biome. And initially, when you're not aware of what's going on here, this will pretty much just screw you over. This is mainly because you can only maintain 2 malfunctions at any time. Any subsequent malfunctions are considered as critical malfunctions, which can actually delete those precious artifacts. This will actually lead to a quick death and restart of your cycle. And for me, this was almost the last straw, as it would mean that you could grind the previous biomes for multiple hours, which is what the game encourages you to do. So that way you could build up a nice assortment of artifacts, strong weapons, and so on, just for them to all be deleted before you could even realize it, which could pretty much just leave you naked and thus easy to kill and pretty much make you start that cycle all over again. It actually got to a point where it made me think to myself, well, what's the point of the grind up to the final level if I can just jump straight into it? I mean, the artifacts will probably be wiped away anyways, right? From here, the only ways out of this situation are either A, never get hit, which is almost impossible in a bullet hell game, or eliminate any risk by possibly burning through all of your ether to cleanse every piece of loot that you find, which is a huge risk because if you don't complete the cycle, you'll start your next cycle at a huge disadvantage without ether, which is another issue all on its own. I guess at the end of it all, they really do ride the risk and reward functions till the wheels fall off, as previously stated. Even with that being said, Returnal is still my current favorite game of 2021, but it's not perfect. There's a lot to love here, but if you're not a fan or accustomed to old school gaming, this one may be one that you want to skip out on, especially with the price tag of $69.99 and no announced plans for a demo. I'd recommend that you purchase Housemarque's Resogun and or Nex Machina, as these games are undoubtedly the roots of the DNA of Returnal's gameplay, and both of these games run for $20 or less on PSN right now. If you like these games even just a little bit, Returnal will be worth the purchase. Otherwise, it may be best for you to wait for a sale. I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by for my review of Returnal today. Please be in mind, hit that like, the subscribe button, leave a comment below. Let me know. Have you played Returnal? Did you beat it? Did you give up on it? And be sure to follow the link in the description over to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/new network, where we have podcasts every week to go over the most recent news in nerd culture. Thanks again for stopping by. This is Greg of DadPad Gaming. Have a wonderful day.